story that I'm going to tell tonight is what I hope is the most epic story of my life. And I say that, I don't use the word epic very often, but this story is worthy of that language. So my friend and I, we'll call him Victor, decided we were going to go up to the Adirondacks and do some rock climbing. So we wanted to do this big multi-pitch climb at a place called Wallface, if you know that area. So we have this, park the car, we sleep in the car overnight, alpine start. So 4 a.m. we get up. I went for like a really short run, get warmed up, and then it was just only something I would do. And then we pack everything up and we hike 5 miles to the start. We do this incredible climb. It's 7 pitches, and if you don't rock climb, basically that means you climb up, you stop, you reset, and keep going. That's the very layman term, basic way to look at it. So we get to the top. It's about almost 1,000 feet. So amazing views. We can see, the rolling hills of the Adirondacks. We can see the lake. It's incredible and gorgeous and beautiful. And then we rappel down, and we have this plan. We're going to go hike 2 miles back to a lean-to, and then we're going to stop there, set up our tents, sleep overnight. So on our way down, we're hiking back, and as we go through, we have to pass through huge muddy areas, giant boulders that are as big as a 2-story house, huge. And as we're going down, it's extremely steep, and we're carrying really, really big bags because we have all these ropes and all this gear with us. And as we're coming down about a mile out, I slip in this crazy way, and my leg just turns out, and there's this terrible crack. And so at this point, we are 4 miles from my car, which is another hour from cell phone service. And so I'm like, Victor, that's bad. That was a bad sound. And Victor's like, no, it's fine. He's like, I hear sounds like that all the time. And I'm like, Victor, no, I think that was really bad. And, and he's like, no, I'm sure you're okay. And he's like, it's probably you just twisted your ankle. And so I'm telling myself, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I twisted my ankle, and I'm trying with this big bag to take like a little step. And I'm like, Victor, this really doesn't feel right. And I'm starting at this point to shake. So I was going into shock. Of course, I didn't know I was going into shock, but I'm starting to shake a bit. And Victor's like, nah, it's fine. He's like, just keep going. He's like, pain's a state of mind, Leah. And I'm like, it is? I'm like, this doesn't feel like a state of mind. And he's like, let's just go a little further. And I take another step or two, and I'm like, Victor, I don't think I can carry my bag. And he's like, okay, well, I can carry your bag. It's only a mile, then we'll rest, you'll reset. Tomorrow morning, you'll be fine. It's just a little twisted ankle. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, let's go with that. And so I take off the bag, give it to him, and I start walking, and just every step is excruciating as I'm walking through. And we haven't, he's just telling me he's like, well, just keep telling yourself it's a state of mind and work on your self-soothing skills. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm like, I had a baby. I'm like, I feel like I should be able to do this. So it's just a sprained ankle. And I'm like, okay, but we get through it. So we walk through, and it's at this point dark. And we're in bear country, of course. And so we get to this lean-to, and Victor's like, I want to sleep out in the open. And I'm like, oh, you go ahead. I'm going to make my little tent. So I make my tent, and Victor's like, let's have dinner. And I'm like, I don't want to eat. I just need to sleep, which also should have been a red flag that something was really wrong, because I had ran, and I had hiked 5 miles, and we had climbed 1,000 feet, and then hiked another 2 miles. You should be starving. So. But I wasn't. And so anyway, I set up my tent, I go to sleep, I chug some water, I prop my foot up, and I hope that I'll wake up in the morning and it'll be okay. And I go to sleep as best I can. I wake up in the morning, and very early, because of course I'm still in pain. At that point, it was already swollen and bruised, and I shove my foot in my shoe. I could barely get it on, and I delegate, I start to divide all of the things we have, and I'm like, I'm going to carry this. I'm going to start hiking. You find me. Victor's like, nah, we should have coffee. He's like, let's just have a couple of coffee. Maybe we'll have a little food. I'm like, I can't eat. I don't want coffee. I just need to get out of here. And it's 3 more miles back to the car. So I put my bag on. I'm like, just find me on the trail. And because there's really only, either you're going back to the wall or you're going to the car. So I start hiking one step at a time. And it's just, one of the most difficult experiences of my life. So as I'm going through, I'm just trying to talk to myself. I'm thinking about the self-soothing that Victor told me to think about, trying to be calm. He catches me every once in a while, and then he takes a break, and then I just keep going. I didn't stop because I needed to finish. So we get to the car, and it's my car. I had driven. I'm 7 hours back to Lancaster. And Victor's like, well, he's like, you're cool to drive, right? And it's my, by the way, right leg. And I'm like, Victor, I don't know that I can drive. I'm like, and he's like, well, you just hiked 4 miles on your leg. He's like, it's just a twisted ankle, Leah, come on. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'll try to drive. So I throw my things in the back and I start driving. We stopped at Lake George for bagels, and a woman there, I think maybe thought I was kidnapped or something, because she was like, are you okay? Do you need help? As I'm like hobbling in, and I'm like, no, I'm okay. We're just getting bagels. And she's like looking at me alarmed, and because it was so obvious, it was obviously so swollen. And we get back in the car. I drive the rest of the way back to Lancaster. I have some, friends coming over to dinner that night, and I'm hobbling around the kitchen trying to make food. I'm amazing that we got back, and then they're like, "What is going on?" And I tell them what happened, and they're like, "Well, nothing could be broken, or you wouldn't be able to hike that far." I'm like, "Well, yeah, maybe you're probably right." And at this point, I do feel the need to mention that I had started a running streak, and it started just sort of as a habit and then became a thing. And I was gone through like a hard time, and I was like, I'm going to do this big thing, and I'm going to run 1 mile at minimum every day for a whole year. And the day that I had we did this climb was day 343. And so it was really close to the end. And I have a really great friend, her name's Karen, and Karen is, of course, watching on Strava, every day that I'm running, and noticed I didn't run that morning. And she texts me, and she's like, what's going on? I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, well, you didn't run. Something's up. Like, are you okay? And I'm like, well, I don't know if I can run. I'm not sure. I'm like, I think I might have messed up my leg. And she's like, okay, well, you should probably get this checked out if you didn't run. It's day 344 now, and you didn't run yet, and it's 8 o'clock. And I'm like, all right. And I was like, maybe tomorrow. I'm like, let's see, maybe it'll be better overnight. So I go to sleep, and then the next morning, Karen shows up, and she's like, this is an intervention, all right? I'm taking you to the urgent care. And so Karen drives me to urgent care. And this is actually September of 2020, so I really didn't want to go to the urgent care. And but I agreed. We get there, and they do an x-ray, and the PA just pretty much laughs at me. And he's like, your leg is broken. You need to go immediately to orthopedics. He's like, you probably need surgery. And I mean, he was like laughing. And it's funny, I just ran into him the other weekend, and I told him this story again, and he didn't hear the aftermath of it. So anyway, I go to orthopedics. They look at me. And they're like, so what happened? I tell them what I just told you, and they are in disbelief that this choice that I made to hike it out of the Adirondacks, which if you've been there, you know how marshy and uneven it is, and then to drive a car 7 hours, and then to continue to wait another 24 hours or so until I went there. And anyway, but when he took it to the orthopedic surgeon, he said, I don't think you need surgery. If your tendons held up for that hike, you're probably okay. So they casted me that day. And so I spent the last 22 days of that year-long streak in a cast. And when I think about that time, I really thought I'd get to day 365 and be like, wow, this was just such an amazing experience, and I've learned so much. And I think at the end of the day, the last 22 days is where I really learned the most about myself, and who I am without movement, who I am when I have to be still. And who I am when I have to, reflect on experiences instead of just distracting myself with them. And so it was a pretty incredible journey to get to the end. And I can report now in 2023 that I just on September 27th repeated the streak and finished 365 days. So yay! So there's a bit of redemption at the end of the story that I was able to finally do it. I have to say that, in the last 20 days, pretty much every day I was concerned I would break something. But I survived it, and it was an incredible life experience. So, yeah, the end.